Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Going down the home stretch for the month of March.
Yes, we are, and also the home stretch for our Congress people up in Atlanta.
Yes, sirree. Under the Gold Dome, Sine Die is only a day or two away, so we're getting ready for whatever legislation was passed and signed by the governor.
Yes, we are, and I think that there's still a lot to talk about and only a few days left for us to get it passed. So.
Yeah, that's right. And St. Vincent's Academy had its first annual Nun Run over the weekend. We'll be talking about that. And the disgrace that's known as our district attorney here in Chatham County has filed for a continuance of a March 16th trial, which charged it with a shooting death of 27-year-old Benjamin Tucker. So that's been delayed for a couple of weeks, months, years, whatever it is.
Well, and it's getting really old to hear about how many of these cases they are not prepared to try because of their lack of ADAs in the office, which I think is a huge issue. And, I mean, we're talking about it, but we're not hearing a lot coming from what we're going to do about it because a lot of complaining, a lot of people that she's let go, but it doesn't seem like they really have a lot of answers for how they're going to address this problem.
Yeah, this happened back in April of last year. So this is over a year old. This is at a Time Saver convenience store. This young man, Benjamin Tucker, was visiting here from England when he was shot and killed. And on March 21st, Chatham County Superior Court Judge Penny Haas-Friesman did grant the state's motion for a continuance. So we'll see what happens from here.
Yes, the problem with these, Bill, is also once they're granted a continuance, it seems like there's 3 or 4 of those that happen. And so, I mean, it delays justice for the victims and also delays someone maybe that is innocent or from being able to be out on the streets as well. I think that, you know, it puts a lot of people's lives on hold. How about that?
Yeah, and a lot of taxpayer money in the coffers of somebody.
Yes. Well, isn't one of the things right to a speedy
right
trial?
To a fair trial? Yeah, that's supposed to be in the Constitution.
Yes.
The right to a speedy trial with a jury of your peers.
Yes.
And sometimes your peers are too busy. Well, we'll find out. So we'll be talking about that as time goes along. Meanwhile, what's going on under the Gold Dome as we can see the checkered flag from here. So what's happening? Let's get a wrap up of exactly what happened last week as we go into this final week of the legislative session.
Hi, Donna. Yes, it's definitely a very busy day. And if you can probably hear behind me, it is still going on today. COVID protocols and that fight between the House and the Senate over the 2024 budget were all on the docket. The Senate presented their version of the 2024 budget today.
The FY24 budget proposal before you now is a $32.4 billion budget. It supports law enforcement, as I said in committee. It protects our families, supports our children, and quite literally, as many of you wrote and asked, gives them hope. In the big picture that I said already, I know it's fair to say that the Senate's version more fairly reflects the governor's budget than our comrades across the hall, our compadres across the hall. Comrades, probably not the best word to use, was it there, boys?
The Senate's version increased spending in some areas.
The Senate's budget in big picture replaces funding that the House pulled from Medicaid. It also replaces the reinsurance program that was reduced by the House and adds to it. It returns HOPE funding to 100% for students with a B average. That was the second most requested item by the members of this body. And it supports the governor's $2,000 raise for all state employees.
Also a priority, education.
We address 3 things: literacy, dyslexia, and QBE. For the second year in a row, there's no austerity reduction to the QBE formula, and we did fund the $2,000 teacher increase. At higher education, the Senate's budget returns to the governor's position by funding 100% factor rate for prior year tuition for the HOPE grants and the HOPE scholarships at public schools. We reduced our testing budget, and some people have asked, why did we do that? Well, this body, for years, has maintained its commitment to reduce the testing requirement on our students and on our teachers in the classroom. And if we're going to reduce that testing requirement, we believe the budget should follow that reduction in tests.
And one of this session's biggest issues was also addressed, the practice of hoteling.
As of right now, or as of last night, 68 children were in hoteling situations across our state. That is 68 too many, and we will continue to hammer this point until it's 68 less. We also had 17 children, as of right now, who are bouncing either between an ER, a crisis stabilization unit, or a residential psychiatric treatment facility. We spend $178 million a year, including federal funds, on this contract. And I do not understand why that $178 million total contract cannot end this issue.
Senator Tillery also disputed media claims that the Senate and the House were particularly at odds over this budget.
I saw lines that say we're in a budget fight, that this building's about to burn down. They don't know if we'll make it to sine die. Well, guys, I want to tell you, for the past 200 years, we've made it to sine die, and there's been no problem. And the rhetoric in the halls isn't always the truth. You see, I asked our staff today, with me, to count up the lines of this budget. There are 1,412 lines in HB 19. Of those lines, 743, 52.6%, have already been agreed upon by the House, the Senate, and the governor.
One of the big losers in the next budget, lawmakers' own network, Georgia Public Broadcasting, whose budget is scheduled to be cut by 26%.
I just wanted to at least raise that question for you, Mr. Chairman, today to see if you could address the record on why the Senate version of the budget includes that cut.
Over the years, other stations who are, I guess, would be viewed as competitors in the same space as GPB have brought a very valid argument to our body. And they've said, hey, why are you funding one and not the other? Let's be honest, what they're really saying is, why are you funding my competition? But I think that's actually a very valid point. Well, why are we picking winners and losers? I don't think that's what the space we want to be in.
The budget was passed 51-1 and was immediately sent back to the House, but they rejected the Senate's version, and their differences will now have to be worked out in a conference committee. Also in the House, a contentious debate over SB 1, which would remove the requirement to show proof of a COVID-19 vaccination for government services.
This is not a bill on whether or not the pandemic is over or whether or not it's still ongoing, but rather this is a bill that says we are not going to allow the state, its agencies, or its subdivisions or authorities to discriminate against any Georgia citizen for services that they are due.
But Democrats firmly stood in opposition, calling the bill harmful as it does not address the possibility of future variances of COVID-19 or other public health needs, and a way to simply make money.
Bills like this tie our hands with respect to the response we can provide, and it limits our toolbox whether we think we need the tools at present or not.
I have spent years now in my role as a House member immersed in the world of anti-vaccine misinformation, and I'm telling you, there is a lot of money that a lot of folks are making. So it is to their economic benefit that they have policies like this, like SB 1 that we're discussing today, because it continues to erode that faith in vaccines.
Despite the opposition, the bill passed 99-69. And lastly, a friendly battle between the House and Senate as each chamber took to the field for the annual legislative kickball tournament. Speaker John Burns calling the shots on the field like he does in the House.
There's only 10 out there. Can't count. Y'all never been able to count the Senate.
And the House took home the trophy for their second consecutive win, which they were not shy to brag about today.
And you can believe that the House boasted about that win today as well. Donna, that is my Capitol report. I'll send it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. We're watching.
So there you have it.
Yes, lots of arguments about the budget. You know, I'm definitely in favor for them cutting money.
Yeah. Especially public broadcasting has become so liberal. Georgia Public Television is pretty good, and the Lawmakers Show is certainly excellent. And as I've said on numerous occasions, I'd like to see South Carolina Education TV also do something similar for the Palmetto States. Find out what's going on there under the Copper Dome or whatever the hell that is up there in Columbia.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, Bill. I think that this is a good use of our tax money, the lawmakers. It gives us access that we might not have otherwise, and it breaks it down for us. So I think that that's a really good thing.
Yeah, but we're being cloned this morning. So
yes, yeah. Sorry about
in case
that.
you're wondering what that was. But I want to go back to this situation where we've had to postpone another trial.
Yes.
That's been going on of Benjamin Tucker, young man was visiting here from England who was murdered in cold blood last year. The case was scheduled to go to the jury on from March the 20th to the 24th. And one of the 23 cases that were scheduled during that period. And Jones, our district attorney, or the joke of our district attorney, wrote in a motion on March the 16th that the Nate Patel, who was supposed to be the prosecutor in this case, he announced his resignation effective immediately. And at the time, the Patels, he had 12 criminal cases scheduled for trial, 6 of which were violent felony. I'm sorry, 8 of which were serious felonies. So this is where we stand on this at this particular time, when we don't have a district attorney who knows what the hell she's doing or could care less, and where they're bleeding people. You would think she was Kamala Harris, the way people are leaving the DA's office. So, and maybe she is a clone.
Well, I'm also thinking that this is what happens when we vote for people not based off of their skill set.
Exactly.
This is exactly what happens, and I think.
Or when we stuff the ballot box, but that's another story.
Yes, we'll cover that another day. Our friend Steve Staten, he said good morning to us, Bill, and he also says, "Am I hearing this right? There's a bill to require proof of vax. So the bill is to make sure that the government cannot require
it.
Yes. Yeah. So we are,
all these people that argue, oh, you're just going to have people lose faith in the vaccine. I thought we were supposed to go by the science, and the science is telling us that these vaccines were not that good.
Yes, and we actually have Rand Paul coming up talking to some of the big pharma CEOs about, their role and also how they're helping make decisions, but also making so much money. So we're going to get to Rand Paul in just a little bit, but it's a huge issue. And
it is.
The thing for me, Bill, is like, why do we even have to make a law against that? Shouldn't we already have the freedom? Like, there should be a law for it. It's interesting that we are making laws that the Constitution should already carry.
Well, we're making laws violating the Constitution is what we're doing.
Yes, we are. We definitely do that all the time.
You have to show you're vaccinated to fly on an airplane, or you have to be vaccinated to do this, that, or the other. You have to in order to keep your job. At least I was pleased that the company that I worked for when I was doing radio at least didn't require us to get the vaccine. They told me I didn't have to wear a mask in the studio. When I walked out of the studio, I should be wearing a mask around the rest of the building. Nobody was there. I don't know. They were all home, so I don't know why that was necessary. But, when I saw some of the bosses come in, I put the mask on and said, okay, here we go. So we already know that the masks are not effective. We know that the vaccine was not as effective as they told us it was going to be. We have people dropping dead right and left from very mysterious circumstances who have had the vaccine and have been multi-vaccinated. So you would think the science by now would say, let's hold off on this. And let's get back to normal, because what it has cost us as far as personnel and people that don't want to go back to work, and the people who are struggling mightily to try to stay in business. I was at a drive-in restaurant just last week where they were telling people that were coming up in line, said, please be patient with us. There's only 3 of us here working. Can you, we'll get to you just as soon as we can. We're working as hard as we can. And I said, bless your heart. I gave them an extra tip. Just because of that. And they got to everybody just as quickly as they could. Everybody was courteous. Everybody understood. But only 3 people working when they should have had about 8.
Yep, and that's the normal. And we're going to be talking a little bit about, do you know who Edward Dowd is?
Yeah.
We have some stuff with him as well later on in the show, talking about some of the injuries and the numbers and the percentages, which... Man, it's not great.
We just had another, was it Air Force Academy or one of the academies where a 20-year-old cadet found dead in his bed. We've had tennis players that have dropped dead on the court or had some sort of heart issue or something along those lines. This is pathetic, and we need to get to the bottom of this. And God bless Rand Paul. He seemed to be the only one that seemed to be very concerned about this. and getting calling up, telling people to get the Fauci ouchie. Forget about that.
Yes, freedom. We should have freedom of all things, Bill, including medical freedom to make those decisions for ourselves and our families.
Indeed. And of course, thanks to Obamacare, we've tried to ruin the greatest medical company, medical service, and facilities in the world.
Yes, and we'll be talking more about that when we get back from break.
That's next.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
At Get Real America, we'd like to thank the Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly for all their efforts on making a difference in our communities.
At Get Real America, we are focused on Savannah, but we'd like to hear from other communities as well. We have a lot in common.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard on this Monday morning. Here it is, the 27th day of March. We're just about to wrap up the first quarter of 2023.
I can't believe April starts this week.
April Fool's Day coming up on Saturday, so get ready. If you hear something strange, you might want to just... You're probably going to believe it with the way this administration is going. But we'll be talking about later in the week. We'll be talking about some of your favorite April Fool's stories. And because there have been some classics over the years. One of my favorites was from Sports Illustrated some years back. But we'll talk about that later in the week.
That will be really fun, Bill. I'm excited about that. I think that I wish that some of this COVID stuff was April Fool's.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And one of the guys who was trying to get to the bottom of it is Rand Paul. And I always loved one of these anchorettes some years ago said, hey, he's talking about this, and this. Who made him a doctor? The University of Kentucky Medical School. You dumb.
Well, and he could also be an attorney. He is one of the best questioners we have up there in Congress.
He's kind of the Trey Gowdy of the Senate, and Trey unfortunately has resigned. His congressional post is now doing a great show on Fox News on Sunday night. But Trey, I'd have hated to have been on the wrong side of his desk when he was prosecuting a case, because brother, he knows how to bore, laser focus down on the issues. But Rand Paul, once again, trying to get to the bottom of all this Fauci-ouchie nonsense.
Mr. Bancel, Moderna recently paid NIH $400 million. Do you believe it creates a conflict of interest for the government employees who are making money now off of the vaccine to also be dictating the policy about how many times we have to take the vaccine?
Good morning, Senator. Indeed, we recently made, before Christmas last year, a $400 million payment to the NIH for an old patent that they had developed, not related to COVID, but useful in the development of a COVID vaccine to pay them for their work. It's for the U.S. government to assess how that money should be used.
Do you think it creates a conflict of interest for the same people deciding the policy of how often we have to take the vaccine to also be making money the more times we take the vaccine? Yes or no?
This is for the government to decide, Senator.
You have no opinion on whether or not that creates a conflict of interest. Is there a higher interest or a higher incidence of myocarditis among adolescent males 16 to 24 after taking your vaccine?
So thank you for the question, Senator. First, let me say we care deeply about safety, and we are working closely with the CDC and the FDA to
Pretty much a yes or no. Is there a higher incidence of myocarditis among boys 16 to 24 after they take your vaccine?
The data I've seen from the CDC actually shown that there's less myocarditis for people who get the vaccine versus who get COVID infection.
You're saying that for ages 16 to 24 among males who take the COVID vaccine, their risk of myocarditis is less than people who get the disease.
That is my understanding, Senator.
That is not true, and I'd like to enter into the record 6 peer-reviewed papers from the Journal of Vaccine, the Annals of Medicine, that say the complete opposite of what you say. I also spoke with your president just last week, and he readily acknowledged in private that, yes, there is an increased risk of myocarditis. The fact that you can't say it in public is quite disturbing. Do you think it's scientifically sound to mandate 3 vaccines for adolescent boys?
This is for the public health leaders to decide, Senator.
You've been advocating for it, you've been interviewed, and you've been advocating for boosters. Do you know when the myocarditis is most common among these adolescent boys? After the second dose. When I spoke with your president, he readily acknowledged in private, that maybe there ought to be a discussion whether we ought to have 1 vaccine versus 2 versus 3. If 90% of the myocarditis comes after the second dose, why don't we have a rational discussion about 1? Marty Makary, a physician from Johns Hopkins, has said exactly the same thing. It's been discussed, and yet we have this ridiculous notion from the CDC. So the CDC says, and I'll ask you this question. Let's start it as a question. Your 16-year-old's had COVID. Your 16-year-old gets better and now has recovered from COVID. You vaccinate them, and they get myocarditis. Are you going to give them 2 more vaccines? Your child, give them 2 more vaccines?
I'm not a clinician. I will have to discuss.
You have children.
I do.
Have you vaccinated your children?
I have.
How many times?
3 or 4 times.
3 or 4 times.
So
the CDC recommends this, and you're obviously someone who's self-interested in the outcome here, but the CDC says that if your 15, 16-year-old gets COVID, recovers, takes a vaccine and gets myocarditis, is hospitalized with elevated heart enzymes, and is very sick, the CDC says as soon as he gets better, vaccinate him again. You know how many American parents think that that's a rational, reasonable thing to do? Do you know how many countries don't do this for children? Sweden doesn't offer the vaccine for kids under 12 unless they're at risk for severe disease. And I agree with that. I'm not saying never on any of this. I think it's a very reasonable position to say kids at risk or have some diseases that there may be a reason for vaccinating some children. Finland doesn't recommend it for under 12 months. Norway also. England as well. France, Poland, Germany, Switzerland, and all vaccinate 12 and up. So we got half the world who have looked at these studies. There's a study in Israel of thousands of patients, and yet you sit here and act as if you've never heard of myocarditis and you don't think it's an increased risk for young adolescent males when all of the studies who isolate out people my age have found that, yes, there's an increased risk after taking your vaccine. Pfizer too, but worse with Moderna.
There's an increased risk, Senator. I was comparing it to somebody who gets COVID.
Well, that's also not true either, but there's an increased risk of getting it. But even when they compare it to the disease, there are many papers out there that do show that there's more of a risk of myocarditis after vaccination. So you have to weigh the risk and balances. And you are right, you're going to make less money because you're going to try, and they're already trying, the CDC's got it on their schedule, they're going to try to force all to do this through school. But guess what? Parents aren't going to do it. They've seen that COVID is not deadly in children, and you're right, it's become less deadly over time. Your market's going down, so you aren't going to make as much money. I'm all for you making money in an honest way, but I don't like the idea that the people making the decisions in government are also receiving money and are now conflicted in their interest.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it.
Well, I think it's important that people are watching the actual Senate hearings on this stuff because I think they're less likely to be able to get out of things. And I think it's really important that, number one, that we have C-SPAN. I think that's something that's really key because it's unfiltered. So
to a degree.
Yeah, well, Rand Paul, I think, does a great job of questioning. And I also think that there's still a lot of questions about some of these vaccines and what they accomplish and what they don't.
And wouldn't you know how many times your kids have been vaccinated? This guy had to think about it for a while, and I think he just made it up.
Yeah, that was very strange to me as well.
Yeah, right, yeah. I was, give me a syringe filled with Mountain Dew or something like that.
Yeah, well, also, it's like they weren't very clear on vaccination. So were they asking about the COVID vaccine, or is he saying, "Oh, my kids have been vaccinated," over the course of their life?
Smallpox, a whole bit, vaccines that actually worked.
Yes, very, very interesting. But we do have some sad news that happened over the weekend in Mississippi.
Oh, my beloved Mississippi. Keep praying for these people. Honest to God, this is just unbelievable. Take a look at some of the pictures, and like any of these others, until you go there, pictures don't actually do it justice. But the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency officials have preliminary categorized Friday.
In 2022, swimmer Leah Thomas became the first transgender athlete to win an NCAA Division I championship by winning the 500 freestyle. The Texas native competed for 3 seasons on the men's swim team at the university.
Coming to a close. You know?
Yeah.
So that's exciting and fun.
We're finding out the best women are men.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Unbelievable. I wonder when we have men's month, I'm recommending that maybe we get Rachel Mad Cow Disease as the man of the year.
Oh, well, good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. I mean, good for him.
But her, them, whatever she goes by.
I was going to say the pronouns are a little much for me.
Yeah, for real.
When we get back, we will be jumping into what is going on in the banking crisis.
No. It's only money. Don't worry about it. That's coming up next. Let's get real. At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934. With personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was that they had come to us, because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
Ready or not?
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And here it is, Monday already, starting off a brand new week and getting ready to wrap up the month of March.
Yes, very exciting. We have a lot of stuff going on, and we'll be talking about the April Fool's stuff later on in the week, which will be fun. So,
ever pulled an April Fool's joke?
When I worked in corporate, we had like team wars on who could do the best jokes, and so every day was April Fool's.
Yeah, I see.
I will say
that's not good.
Yeah, well, one time so I was super busy at the time. We were short-staffed, and I was working in licensing, and they filled my entire cubicle with balloons. I was not happy. Do you know how long it takes to get rid of a cubicle full of balloons?
I'm sure a lot.
Yes. So, anyways, but we love to play pranks in the corporate world, so we'll be talking more about that.
Yeah, for real. All right. Meanwhile, Glenn Beck does not gild the lily. And with starting The Blaze, and which is one of the best websites, you'll actually get real journalism there. They'll tell the real stories. In fact, one of the most tragic I've seen in a while is about a California Uber driver who was killed in a carjacking, father of 2, and a Marine who survived 3 tours in the Middle East.
What was the purpose?
Pathetic.
Like, what happened?
And I was just looking at the headline.
Yeah,
But
it's
Well,
it's in California, right?
Yeah.
They're not prosecuting criminals in California.
Mhm.
They're, things are out of control. I've seen some stuff in California that make me never want to visit the state ever again. And I'm from the West. I love California.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The politics, however, have destroyed it.
It is ruined. The left ruins everything it puts its hands on. And it can't leave well enough alone. And they want to destroy everything. And they're doing a damn good job of it.
Yes, they are. And one of the things that isn't getting enough traction is the banking crisis that we're seeing. I believe we had
Exactly.
a fourth bank fail over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. So Glenn Beck's talking about it on The Blaze and on his website. And here's some of the things that he had to say and some warnings to us all.
Why are they going after Donald Trump now? Well, there's lots of reasons. But I would like to start with the granddaddy of them all, distraction from the banking crisis. The banking crisis, inflation. By the way, the Fed that told us inflation is just transitory. If they raise the interest rate today, the banks were worried that, we might have a whole bunch of banks go down. Well, they did raise it. You know why? Because they're terrified of the inflation that is coming. They couldn't not raise the rates today because of inflation. What does that tell you? This gives you flashbacks to 2008. You should read on because the next chapter is much worse than 2008. The banking crisis spreading to Europe. Credit Suisse has been in operation for 166 years. Switzerland's largest bank, UBS, had to do a hasty deal at the very last minute to buy them out. Quick, before the markets open. The deal was so last minute and rushed, the New York Times reported, quote, so hastily assembled was the deal that UBS told analysts that they didn't have the time to fully model all of the financial impacts of buying Credit Suisse. Okay. Credit Suisse has had its problems, but Deutsche Bank has been on the edge too. What's going to happen with them? How many banks here are facing this same scenario? This rate going up 0.25 today, is that going to put any of our other banks in line? And by the way, if we bail out all the banks, isn't that nationalizing our banks?
I do believe that's exactly what that is, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Now, I would think to a degree, there's no need for, it's concern, but not panic. And one of the things that Dave Ramsey is telling us is that, your local and regional banks are okay. Don't worry about, this other stuff, but we're going to have to get a handle on it. And Congress is going to have to show some backbone here, and I'm hoping that they have one.
Yes, well, and Bill, we cannot continue to bail out people that fail.
No,
I think that
this too big to fail crap that started under the Dalai Lama is ridiculous.
Well, we have to have some accountability, and if banks are loaning out money to companies that are not profitable or that don't have a good business plan, they should have to suffer the consequences of that.
Remember, we had all the airline crisis. They operated for years under Chapter 11, till they could get back on their feet, and then of course we had the COVID thing, but and now they're trying to get back. Their passenger right now manifests are larger than pre-COVID. Unfortunately, they don't have the staff.
Yeah, well, it turns out when you lock people in their homes for a couple of years, guess what? They want to go. They want to adventure out. They want to.
We'll talk about it with airline executive or airline excellent specialist Jay Ratliff, maybe hopefully later this week. But one of the worst things was the short-sightedness of the people who are running the airlines, of letting all these pilots go, let them have early retirement. Did they think this thing wasn't going to be over? in a little while. So, but of course, I don't know why they can't say, "Hey, come on back. We'll put you in the simulators and get you back up to snuff and go." But the fact. But of course, we've got a transportation secretary who says, "Well, wait a second. We can't bring a bunch of white people back because that wouldn't be balanced to have people of color and people of trans and people of from Mars, whatever it is that he comes up with this week."
Well, and it is a huge issue. We talk about this actually quite frequently on the show about how dangerous it's becoming now to fly because of the pilot shortage and that they're reducing credentialing for these pilots.
We do have some good news, however. This cretin that the president nominated to be head of the FAA because he had all the experience of running the airport in Denver has withdrawn his nomination.
Oh, what caused that?
This I don't know. This guy's dumb as a box of rocks. I think it was a lot of negative publicity he got when they showed him in front of Congress, and he couldn't answer any of the questions that you would think that somebody who was going to be head of the FAA would be able to answer.
Yeah, qualifications actually do matter, Bill.
Yeah.
They do matter.
But his qualification had been he was the manager of the Denver airport.
That is,
which didn't have that great a reputation anyway. Remember, I think it was 5 years delayed in getting open in the first place.
Yes.
Because of all this new state-of-the-art baggage handling thing that kept destroying baggage, among other things.
Yeah. Have you been to that airport?
I have.
Okay.
It's a nice airport.
Yes.
No, it's a nice airport.
Yes.
It's very good. And Denver used to be a great city.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Once again, ruined by the left.
Sure has
and been. Marijuana smokers.
Yes.
What happens when you legalize pot?
Yes, it's a very dirty city.
Mm-hmm.
Very dirty. We have a lot of problems right now, Bill.
Really?
Yeah. They seem to be creeping up all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's someone that gave a speech over the weekend that was talking about what he believes is the biggest threat here in the country.
Yes, sirree. Let's see what he has to say.
The rule of law is a tremendous threat to Western civilization. And I was asked the other day, and I took a little heat for it. They said, who's our biggest threat? Is it China, sir? Is it Russia? I said, no, our biggest threat are high-level politicians that work in the United States government, like Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, Biden, Justice Department, because that's poisoning our country. I can do things with China. I made the greatest trade deal in history with China. I don't even talk about it because sometime after that, fairly shortly, what happened with COVID, it was like I didn't want to talk about a trade deal.
Well, the politicians are a big threat here.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi had her birthday yesterday, 83. Jeez. Mitch McConnell, 82. And these people have been up there in Congress and doing damage for over 30 years.
Which shouldn't happen.
No, it shouldn't.
It's unacceptable.
That was not the idea of the Founding Fathers. You were supposed to come up, do your duty for 2, maybe 6 years, and leave. Go back to your farm. Go back to your home. Go back to your real job, whatever it was.
It was supposed to be more public service than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's what, frankly, I would like to see, Congress kind of like what they do with the state legislatures. Meets about 40 days a year, and that's about it. Otherwise, bring the tourists in. You show them the Statue of Liberty. That's not. We show them the Lincoln Memorial and the Capitol Dome, and say, yeah, there it is.
Yep, I agree. I think less government is better, and I also think the least amount of time they're up there doing damage is the better option for everyone.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes, it is. And when we get back, we'll be chatting about what happened over the weekend here in Savannah, something really fun and, raising good money for a good cause.
Yes, sirree. Coming up next.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. Look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. A kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy Monday. Getting ready to go down the home stretch here for the month of March. And I really got to hand it to the folks at the Deep Center here in Savannah. And this is where they get the kids to sit down and write stories about themselves or their deep feelings. And some of it is deeply disturbing. But they've gone on this year-long hunt here in Savannah for their new executive director, and it's going to be Holly Whitfield. Holly, they say, this is how the Savannah Morning Mistake actually published this. The veteran educator and organizational leader brings passion for organizational diversity, equity, and inclusion, in addition to her experience as a scholar, activist, educator, and nonprofit leader, and 15 years of nonprofit. And she is a Vietnam veteran, a Vietnam citizen, or was from Vietnam. And so this is the qualification. She brings all this inclusion. She brings all this diversity. Yeah. How about, does she bring any experience? Does she know what she's doing? Well, we'll only find out pretty soon. But this is the world that we live in now, including what ESPN did over the weekend to honor women, as we wrap up Women's History Month and Women's Appreciation Month, or what Women's Month is it?
I don't know. I don't really feel like women are being appreciated very much, especially with ESPN covering
but if you're a guy,
the best woman. Yes.
Pretty good.
In 2022, swimmer Leah Thomas became the first transgender athlete to win an NCAA Division I championship by winning the 500 freestyle. The Texas native competed for 3 seasons on the men's swim team at the University of Pennsylvania. She began her transition after her sophomore season, and after a gap year due to the pandemic that forced the Ivy League to cancel all sports. Thomas made her debut as a member of the women's team in December 2021.
Being trans is not a choice. I didn't have any other choice because not transitioning was not leading me anywhere.
She competed amidst criticism from the swimming community, competitors, and teammates. She said she hopes her persistence serves a larger purpose.
People will say, oh, she just transitioned, so she would have an advantage, so she could win. I transitioned to be happy.
Why corporate America continues to put up with this crap and to shove this stuff down our throat is beyond my comprehension. If they want to continue to be corporate America, they shouldn't destroy the country that they're allowed to survive in.
Well, we also talked about earlier that there's a lot of people that are the head of corporate companies in America that are not Americans.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting how that has shifted drastically and how we've gotten much more woke in a lot of these companies.
Yeah, Coca-Cola is the CEO's in the UK someplace.
Yeah.
And we just heard earlier in the broadcast, we had the head of Pfizer. He was from, I don't know,
France maybe or something. I don't know.
Who knows? But didn't know how many times his kids have been vaccinated.
Very interesting.
So this is the world that we live in, and Leah Thomas should and whatever what's his real name?
I don't remember.
But whatever it is, ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Yes.
But you communist organizations are showing your true colors. We haven't heard a word on this from the National Organization of Whack Job of Women. We haven't heard anything from Code Pink about raising hell about all this and how they're destroying women's athletics. So when are we going to hear from you? Because we certainly hear from you on little nitpicking issues on whether or not we should name a manhole cover a person hole cover.
Well, also, Bill, it's offensive to women to be called a birthing person.
Yes.
No, I am a woman. Mm-hmm. We bear children. I'm sorry. End of story. End of discussion. And no one cares about the women being offended. No. At all. And
well, it's like Brittany. It was like when they were banning the prayer before high school football games. They said, "Well, someone was offended." Well, whoop-de-doo. Let them leave the stadium. Let them close their eyes. Let them play tiddlywinks. Whatever it is, I'm offended. So you offend 60 million other people. That's okay because we don't want to offend that one person. How come we don't get a voice here?
Well, and I think
you started this.
Yes, they did, and I do feel like they do need to. Well, actually, the silent majority, which people have become so proud to be a part of, cannot be silent anymore. We've got to stand up. And where are all the parents not standing up for their children that are females that are trying to compete in these sports? They're having their scholarships taken away, and because they're being beat out by someone that has a biological advantage over them. I don't have an issue with these people competing, but maybe they need to have their own.
Well, so many of them are being ostracized and beaten down for coming up with, and saying these things that a lot of people. I mean, this is the tactic of the left.
Yes.
Of terrorizing and keeping people. It's like they said if you do something to Christians and say Christianity can't be taught in schools or thrown out. That's no because they know the Christians aren't going to come back and bomb the place. But you said we're not going to recognize the Quran and speak talk to the peace loving Muslims about Ramadan or anything else or ever sing Ramadan carols, whatever it is. Then those people might come back and kill you. So there's they know where we stand on both issues.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think you and I were talking about was just education in general and how we need to really focus on either saving it or pulling your kids out and doing something different. But, I have not seen Bill 233 go to the floor yet for a vote, which is the one for school choice, which I think is a great step in the right direction. It's not going to solve everything, but it's a good step, and I think that, it will help a lot of parents be able to make a different decision about where their kids go to school. However, if you live in Savannah, you might not be able to get into a private school because they are being people that are coming in for the Hyundai plant are putting their kids in private school because there's no way in heck they're going to put their kid in public school here.
Well, I hope that they're making extra provisions and not denying our local kids, but we're going to be looking into that as well. And we're talking about specifically Savannah Country Day that has seeing a lot of young South Korean kids coming into class. I asked my grandson who goes there, I said, "Do they speak English?" And he said, "Yeah, they do speak English." So
they learn more than one language in other countries.
Well, yeah,
they're a little bit above us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually, they've come from a country where education is actually something important. My friend of mine married a lady from Ukraine years ago.
Wow.
And they've been happily married for over 20 years. And she had like a 12-year-old daughter at the time, and she came over, and one day she missed her bus going to school and came home hysterical that she was going to miss school that day. He had to come home to work. He had to go to work late to take her to school because she was so upset that she was going to miss school that day. They had Saturday school over where she was.
Wow.
And that was not a punishment. That was a reward, because on Saturday you got to work with computers. So in some countries, they actually care about education and actually teach kids stuff that actually is useful.
Well, we need to start doing that here in the U.S. I believe that they're talking about perhaps there were some recommendations made to close a couple of schools here, which probably is a good thing because I think that we are underutilizing some, and they have spent a lot of money building new facilities here.
Yeah, they have. But I wish the grades were going up in proportion to what we're spending on these schools for these little miscreants. But there is one of the private schools here is St. Vincent's Academy.
Yes, it is.
And they do teach the kids some stuff. I've talked to some of the girls there, and once in a while they go off the rails on some things like nuclear power. But that's a story for another day. But there was a fundraiser for them over the weekend, a nuns run over the weekend.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yes, and that's where we're going to wrap up the show today. But, if you guys have something fun going on that you want us to know about, please send us a message.
We'd like to hear your favorite April Fool's story, one that was played on you, one that you played on somebody, or one that you just read about and said, hey, that's pretty good.
Or one that you're planning on.
Yeah. Don't tell us, just said, I got one for you. That's coming up Saturday, but we'll see you tomorrow.